"Mom, if anything happens to me, don't give Tyler a penny until he changes who he is." Those were the last words my daughter Jennifer said to me before she walked out my door 7 years ago. 6 hours later, she was dead, her car wrapped around an oak tree in the rain. I never imagined those words would haunt me through every milestone, every birthday, and now through the elaborate flower arrangements and champagne fountains at my grandson's wedding. I watched Tyler from across the reception hall, handsome in his tailored tuxedo that cost more than 3 months of my pension. His father Richard stood beside him, both of them laughing with the kind of people who measure friendship by net worth. Neither noticed I was sitting alone at the family table, the weight of the secret pressed against my chest like a stone. $33 million, all mine according to Jennifer's will, not a cent to Tyler or his father. My modest home in Boston and simple Honda Civic gave nothing away. No one knew that I could buy this entire country club 10 times over without blinking. "Mrs. Sullivan," a server appeared at my elbow. "The father of the groom would like you to join him and your grandson for photos." I nodded, gripping my purse where I kept the folded letter from Jennifer's lawyer, my talisman, my burden. 7 years carrying this secret felt like 70. "There she is!" Richard's voice boomed as I approached. His arm snaked around my shoulders, cologne suffocating me. "The grandmother of the groom! Looking lovely as always, Maggie." Richard's smile never reached his eyes. 25 years since he'd walked out on my daughter for a younger woman, and I still saw the same calculating gaze. Now, nearing 60, he'd maintained his charismatic facade despite 3 more failed marriages. His financial situation, however, was another story. "Thank you, Richard," I said, keeping my voice neutral. Tyler barely acknowledged me, too busy showing off his watch to his groomsmen. 70 grand? Custom made, he was saying. Vanessa's dad hooked me up for the wedding. My heart sank. Same old Tyler, measuring life by price tags. I'd tried so hard after Jennifer died. Opened my home to him when he was 16, still reeling from losing his mother. I cooked his favorite meals, attended every school event, paid for the best therapist in Boston. But Richard's influence ran too deep. "Grandma, stand here." Tyler positioned me like a prop, his hands cold on my shoulders. For a flicker of a moment, I saw Jennifer in his eyes, same deep blue, same tiny fleck of gold near the pupil. Then it was gone, replaced by that familiar, entitled stare. The photographer snapped several photos, and I forced a smile. Did they have any idea what I was hiding? That Jennifer had seen right through both of them? "Excuse me." I stepped away as soon as the photos finished, needing air. Outside on the terrace, overlooking manicured gardens, I unfolded Jennifer's letter again. The paper had grown thin from handling. "Mom, I've watched Tyler become more like Richard every year. The materialism, the manipulation, the belief that money is the answer to everything. I failed him as a mother. Maybe I worked too much after the divorce. Maybe I was too lenient. But I can't let my life's work fund the same emptiness that Richard embodies. You're the only one I trust. Use your wisdom. If Tyler ever truly changes, you'll know." Beautiful ceremony, wasn't it? I startled, quickly folding the letter. A young woman in a bridesmaid's dress stood nearby, Vanessa's sister, Emma. "Yes, lovely," I managed. Vanessa spent months planning every detail. Emma leaned against the railing, though she fought with Tyler about the cost. Did you know she wanted something smaller? She actually wanted to donate half the wedding budget to the community center where she volunteers. My attention sharpened. "I didn't know that." Emma laughed softly. "That's my sister. She keeps the volunteer work quiet, says it's not about recognition." She glanced back toward the reception. Between us, I was surprised when she fell for Tyler. They seemed so different. Before I could respond, a commotion erupted inside. Through the terrace doors, I saw Richard swaying on his feet, pointing angrily at Vanessa's father. Tyler was trying to pull him away, embarrassment etched on his face. "Oh no," Emma whispered. "Mr. Sullivan has been drinking since noon." I watched as security discreetly approached. Richard's voice carried across the terrace. "You think you're better than me? I built everything from nothing. When Tyler gets his mother's money, we'll show you what real wealth looks like." My blood turned to ice. How did Richard know about Jennifer's money? What had Tyler told him? Before I could continue my conversation with Emma, I need to tell you something important. If you want to hear more stories like this one, without ads, delivered straight to your phone even without internet, just check out the pinned comment. As I rushed back inside, one thought hammered in my mind. Jennifer had been right all along, and now, the secret I'd kept for 7 years was about to explode, right in the middle of my grandson's wedding. The wedding coordinator intercepted me before I could reach Richard, her smile professional but strained. "Mrs. Sullivan, we're handling the situation. Perhaps you could join the bride's family for the cake cutting. It's starting in 5 minutes." Over her shoulder, I watched security discreetly escorting Richard toward a side room. Tyler stood frozen, his face a mask of fury and humiliation. Our eyes met across the room, and for the first time that day, he actually saw me. The silent plea in his expression transported me back 7 years, to the 16-year-old boy sobbing in my arms after the police confirmed Jennifer's death. "I'll be right there," I told the coordinator. As I made my way across the ballroom, snippets of whispered conversations reached me. "Did you hear what Richard said about money? Always thought Tyler came from wealth. Mother died in some accident." The weight of Jennifer's secret pressed heavier with each step. If they only knew. The stock investment my daughter had made 15 years ago in a small tech startup had exploded beyond anyone's expectations after her death. Add to that her life insurance policy and the settlement from the accident. $33 million sitting in accounts that only I could access. "Mrs. Sullivan." Vanessa appeared before me, radiant in her designer gown, despite the tension in the air. "I'm so sorry about what just happened." I studied my new granddaughter-in-law's face, searching for signs of the compassionate woman Emma had described. At 23, Vanessa Carter Sullivan came from one of Boston's oldest banking families. When Tyler first introduced us, I'd assumed she was just another trophy for him to acquire. Beautiful, well-connected, perfect for his social climbing ambitions. "Not your fault, dear," I said, patting her hand. "Richard has always been difficult." Something flickered in her eyes. Understanding, perhaps? "Tyler's gone to calm him down. He asked if we could delay the cake cutting." "Of course." She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Tyler never talks about his mother. What was she like?" The question caught me off guard. In the 3 years Tyler and Vanessa had been dating, had he really never spoken about Jennifer? She was... My voice caught. How to describe my brilliant, fierce daughter to the wife of the son who barely remembered her? Jennifer was extraordinary, a financial analyst who worked her way up from nothing. After the divorce, she raised Tyler alone while building her career. She had this laugh that could fill a room, and she never backed down from what she believed was right. Vanessa's eyes softened. "She sounds like someone I would have admired. She would have been 63 today." The words slipped out before I could stop them. Vanessa's eyes widened. "Today is her birthday? Did Tyler know?" I nodded. He chose the wedding date. I thought perhaps it was his way of honoring her. The look of shock on Vanessa's face told me everything. Tyler hadn't remembered. Or worse, hadn't cared. "Mrs. Sullivan, please, call me Maggie." "Maggie," she corrected herself. "Would you help me fix my veil before the photos? In the bridal suite?" I recognized the excuse for what it was. An opportunity to speak privately. Curious, I followed her through the reception hall, past clusters of expensively dressed guests. The bridal suite was empty now, scattered with makeup brushes and champagne flutes. Vanessa closed the door and turned to face me. "There's something you should know." My heart hammered. Had she discovered the truth about Jennifer's money? "Tyler's in trouble," she said instead. "Financial trouble. Big trouble." I blinked, momentarily thrown. "What do you mean?" "He maxed out 5 credit cards paying for the honeymoon and his portion of the wedding. Richard convinced him to take out a loan against a future inheritance." She twisted her diamond ring nervously. "They both seem to think there's money coming when you... I'm sorry, this is awful to say. When you pass away." So that explained Richard's drunken outburst. My mind raced, anger and sadness warring within me. 7 years of providing for Tyler, the private university tuition I paid anonymously through a trust, the apartment I subsidized, the lucky breaks I arranged through old nursing contacts, and still, he was counting the days until my death? "There's something else," Vanessa continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Last night, I overheard Richard telling Tyler they should try to get you declared mentally incompetent if you don't cooperate about the inheritance after the wedding." The room seemed to tilt. "What?" Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "I can't believe I'm saying this on my wedding day, but I think I've made a terrible mistake. The man I fell in love with, the Tyler who volunteers with me at the community center, who stayed up all night helping me prepare meals for the homeless? That man seems to disappear whenever his father is around. I stared at her, processing this new information. Tyler volunteering? Helping the homeless? This didn't align with anything I'd observed over the past 7 years. Before I could respond, the door burst open. Tyler stood there, his face flushed with either anger or alcohol, perhaps both. "There you are," he snapped at Vanessa. "Everyone's waiting. What are you doing with her?" The contempt in the way he said "her" cut through me like a knife. This was the real Tyler, the one Jennifer had seen clearly enough to protect her fortune from. "Don't speak to your grandmother that way," Vanessa said, her voice quiet but firm. Tyler's expression darkened. "Stay out of family business, Vanessa. Dad's having a rough day." "It's your mother's birthday, Tyler," she replied. "Did you even remember?" The color drained from his face. For a moment, the mask slipped, and I glimpsed something I hadn't seen in years. Shame. "The cake," he muttered, turning away. "They're waiting." As Vanessa followed him out, she gave me a look that spoke volumes. This marriage was already fracturing, barely hours after the vows. Alone in the bridal suite, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I rarely used. "Stanley Friedman's office," answered a crisp voice. "This is Margaret Sullivan," I said. "I need to speak with Jennifer's lawyer immediately. There's been a development." Stanley couldn't take my call until Monday, but his assistant assured me the trust was secure. Nobody, not Richard, not Tyler, not even a team of Boston's finest lawyers, could touch Jennifer's money without my consent. I returned to the reception, with my heart racing, but my resolve strengthened. The grand ballroom had transformed for the evening portion. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over the dance floor where Tyler and Vanessa were performing their first dance. They looked like figures from a fairy tale, him in black, her in white, moving together in practiced steps that probably cost thousands in private lessons. "Beautiful couple," said a voice beside me. Vanessa's father, William Carter, offered me a glass of champagne. Unlike Richard's flashy ostentation, William exuded old money confidence. "Shame about Tyler's father causing a scene. Richard has always been theatrical," I replied, accepting the drink. William's eyebrow rose slightly. "That's a diplomatic way of putting it." He lowered his voice. "Between us, I had concerns about this match. Vanessa has always had, shall we say, a social conscience that doesn't typically align with the Sullivan men's reputation." The comment surprised me. "You know Richard well. We've crossed paths in business." Nothing positive. His expression remained carefully neutral. "I respect my daughter's choices, but a father worries, especially when he hears rumors about gambling debts and borrowed money." My fingers tightened around the champagne flute. "Gambling?" William looked momentarily uncomfortable, as if he'd said too much. "Perhaps I'm misinformed. Excuse me, my wife is signaling me." He departed smoothly, leaving me with another piece of the puzzle. Gambling would explain Tyler's financial troubles, despite his well-paying job at an investment firm, a position I strongly suspected Richard had secured for him through dubious connections. The music changed, and guests flooded the dance floor. I retreated to a quiet corner, observing the celebration with growing unease. Richard had reappeared, seemingly sobered up, working the room with his trademark charm. I watched him approach several of William Carter's business associates, clapping shoulders and laughing too loudly. "May I have this dance?" I turned to find a gentleman about my age, distinguished in his tuxedo, hand extended politely. "Robert Winters," he introduced himself, "friend of the bride's family." "Margaret Sullivan," I replied, taking his hand after a moment's hesitation. "Grandmother of the groom." As we moved to the dance floor, Robert proved himself an accomplished dancer. "I hope you don't mind my forwardness," he said. "You looked like you could use a rescue from your thoughts." I smiled despite myself. "That obvious?" I recognized the look of someone carrying a heavy burden. I wore it myself for years after my wife passed. There was no pity in his tone, just understanding. For a moment, I allowed myself to relax into the dance, grateful for the respite from the tension. "I knew your daughter," he said after a moment, his words nearly stopping my heart. "Jennifer Sullivan, right? Brilliant analyst. She consulted for my firm about 12 years ago." My steps faltered. "You knew Jennifer?" Robert nodded. "She had a remarkable mind for investment strategy. Saved our company millions with her recommendations." His expression grew thoughtful. "I lost track of her after she left the industry, Someone mentioned she had passed, and I was deeply sorry to hear it. Car accident, I said automatically, the words rehearsed from years of condolences. 7 years ago. A terrible loss. She spoke about you often, you know, with great admiration. Tears threatened at the corners of my eyes. I'd grown so accustomed to being invisible at family gatherings, to Tyler's dismissive attitude, that I'd forgotten how it felt to be seen. Did she ever mention... I began, then stopped myself. What was I doing? Interrogating a stranger at my grandson's wedding. But Robert seemed to understand what I couldn't ask. If you're wondering whether she mentioned her investment in Horizon Tech, yes, she did. Jennifer was one of the earliest investors. Smart move that would have paid off substantially. My blood ran cold. How much did this man know? It's actually why I approached you, Robert continued, his voice dropping. I recognized you from a photo in her office. When I saw you here, looking so troubled, I wondered if perhaps her son inherited that investment. Young people often mismanage sudden wealth. The dance ended before I could respond, which was fortunate since I had no idea what to say. Robert escorted me back to my table, handed me a business card, and disappeared into the crowd, leaving me shaken. I needed air. Slipping out a side door, I found myself in a small garden illuminated by twinkling lights. To my surprise, I wasn't alone. Vanessa sat on a stone bench, still in her wedding gown, staring at her phone. She looked up as I approached, hastily wiping her eyes. Maggie, I'm sorry, I just needed a minute. Are you all right? I asked, though the answer was obvious. No, she admitted with a sad laugh. My wedding day, and I'm hiding in a garden from my own husband. I sat beside her, careful of her dress. What happened? Tyler's upset because I refused to ask my father for money tonight. He says they need it for an opportunity Richard found. She shook her head. I told him we agreed. No financial discussions on our wedding day. And he said I clearly didn't understand how the real world works, that his father has connections that could set us up for life if we act now. Her voice hardened. Then he said maybe he should have married someone who supported his ambitions instead of someone who wastes time serving soup to junkies. The cruelty sounded exactly like something Richard would say. I'm so sorry, Vanessa. He wasn't always like this, she whispered. When we met in college, Tyler was different. Struggling with his classes, working part-time at the campus cafe. He seemed genuine, vulnerable. She twisted her ring. The community service was his idea, you know. Said his mother used to volunteer, and he wanted to honor her memory. I stared at her in disbelief. Tyler said that? She nodded. The more successful he became at his job, the more time he spent with Richard, the more he changed. It was subtle at first. Designer clothes, expensive restaurants. Then came the gambling. So William was right, I murmured. My father knows? She looked mortified. Tyler promised he'd stopped months ago. A text lit up her phone. She glanced down and her face fell. They're cutting the cake now. I have to go. As she stood, smoothing her dress, I made a decision. Vanessa, after the honeymoon, I'd like to speak with you and Tyler. There's something you both need to know. About the inheritance? She asked perceptively. About Jennifer, I corrected. And yes, about what she left behind, but not what Tyler expects. For the first time that evening, I felt Jennifer's presence beside me, approving as I finally prepared to unveil the truth she'd entrusted to me 7 years ago. The cake-cutting ceremony was a masterclass in pretense. Tyler and Vanessa smiled for the cameras, feeding each other bites of 5-tier white chocolate ganache that cost more than my monthly pension. No one watching would have guessed they'd been arguing minutes earlier, or that the father of the groom was being closely monitored by security guards posing as waitstaff. I stood at the periphery, my mind racing from the conversation with Robert Winters. How much did he know about Jennifer's investments? Was it coincidence he approached me tonight, or something more calculated? Quite the spectacle, isn't it? I turned to find Emma, Vanessa's sister, beside me again. She held 2 plates of cake. Thought you might want some, since you're hiding in the corner. Thank you, I said, accepting the plate. And I'm not hiding, I'm observing. Same difference at these events. She took a bite of cake. God, $30,000 and it tastes like grocery store sheet cake. I nearly choked. 30,000? For a cake? Emma rolled her eyes. Tyler insisted. Vanessa wanted our mom's best friend to bake it. She does amazing work, but apparently it wasn't prestigious enough for the Sullivan-Carter wedding. She studied me thoughtfully. You don't seem like them. The Sullivans, I mean. I'm not, I said simply. That explains why Vanessa likes you. She has a radar for authenticity. Emma's gaze drifted to where her sister and Tyler were posing for more photos. I worried when she started dating him. He seemed like every other trust fund brat at Dartmouth. I bit back a bitter laugh. If only she knew there was no trust fund. At least, not one Tyler could access. But she insisted he was different, Emma continued. Said he had depth beneath the surface, struggles he was working through. She shrugged. I guess she saw something the rest of us missed. Or something that wasn't there, I thought sadly. Mrs. Sullivan. Richard appeared suddenly, his charm dialed to maximum as he addressed Emma. Would you excuse us? Family matter? Emma gave me a look that asked if I was okay. I nodded, and she reluctantly moved away. Richard's smile vanished the moment she left. We need to talk about Tyler's inheritance. Direct and tactless. Typical Richard. This isn't the time or place, I replied coolly. It's the perfect time. His voice was low, controlled, but I could sense the desperation beneath it. Tyler's starting a new chapter. He needs his mother's money now, not when you decide he's worthy of it. I stared at him, shocked by his bluntness. What makes you think Jennifer left him anything? A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face before his confidence reasserted itself. Don't play games, Maggie. Jennifer had that Horizon Tech investment. Everyone in the industry knew it exploded after her death. That money belongs to her son. Legally, it belongs to whoever she designated in her will, I countered. His eyes narrowed. And you've been controlling it all these years, doling out just enough to keep him dependent on you. Classic manipulation. The accusation, so hypocritical coming from him, made my blood boil. Is that what you've told Tyler? That I'm manipulating him? I've told him the truth, that his grandmother is withholding his birthright. Richard stepped closer, his cologne suffocating me again. He needs that money, Maggie. We both do. We? I repeated, catching the slip. Richard's face hardened. I've invested everything in his future, gotten him connections, opportunities. Now we have a chance at something big, really big. But we need capital. Another scheme, Richard? Like the real estate development that bankrupted you in 2012? Or the restaurant chain that folded in 2018? His eyes widened slightly. You've been checking up on me. I've been protecting my grandson, I corrected. Something Jennifer would have expected. At the mention of my daughter, something dark flashed across Richard's face. Jennifer never understood business. All those ethics getting in the way of real success. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Tyler's my son. He's finally becoming the man I raised him to be. Don't interfere with that. The man you raised him to be, I repeated slowly, is exactly what Jennifer feared. For a moment, raw hatred showed in his eyes. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, his mask of charm slipped back into place as he spotted someone approaching. Think about what I said, Maggie. We'll talk again soon. He walked away just as Tyler reached me. My grandson looked flushed, whether from dancing or drinking, I couldn't tell. What did Dad want? He asked, eyes following his father. To congratulate me on your beautiful wedding, I lied, unwilling to drive the wedge between us deeper. Not tonight. Tyler seemed distracted, scanning the room. Have you seen Vanessa? She disappeared after the cake cutting. Perhaps she needed a moment to herself. It's been a long day. He frowned. She should be mingling with my clients. I invited the entire executive team from Blackstone Capital. On your wedding day? I couldn't keep the surprise from my voice. It's called networking, Grandma, he said dismissively. Something Dad taught me. Every event is an opportunity. The words were so clearly Richard's, parroted with the blind faith of a son who still idolized his father despite decades of evidence of the man's failures. Your mother had a different philosophy, I said carefully. She believed relationships were built on trust, not transactions. Tyler's expression closed. Yeah, well, Mom's philosophy didn't exactly work out for her, did it? Divorced, working 80-hour weeks, then dead at 45? He shook his head. No offense, Grandma, but I've chosen my path. Each word struck like a physical blow. Before I could respond, his attention shifted. There's Vanessa, finally, with her father. His tone changed, becoming ingratiating. I should join them. William's considering me for a position at Carter Financial. He walked away without waiting for my response. I watched him approach Vanessa and William, his entire demeanor transforming. Shoulders back, confident smile, the perfect son-in-law. Vanessa's face remained impassive as he slipped his arm around her waist. Mrs. Sullivan? A hotel staff member approached with a phone. "There's an urgent call for you at the front desk." Puzzled, I followed him to a quiet office where a landline receiver lay off the hook. "Hello? Maggie, it's Stanley Friedman." Jennifer's lawyer sounded tense. "I know it's your grandson's wedding, but this couldn't wait. Someone's been making inquiries about Jennifer's estate." My grip tightened on the phone. "What kind of inquiries?" "Legal ones. Someone hired Walsh and Bennett to investigate the terms of Jennifer's will." My blood ran cold. Walsh and Bennett was one of Boston's most aggressive law firms, known for contesting wills and trusts. "When?" "The paperwork was filed yesterday," Stanley said. "And Maggie, the client is listed as Tyler Sullivan." The room seemed to spin around me. That's impossible. Tyler doesn't even know the details of Jennifer's will. "There's more," Stanley continued grimly. "They've specifically requested information about mental competency requirements for trustees. They're building a case to have you declared unfit to manage the trust." Vanessa's warning from earlier echoed in my mind. This wasn't just talk. They were already taking action. "What do I need to do?" I asked, my nurse's training kicking in, focusing on practical steps rather than the betrayal tearing at my heart. "For now, nothing. The trust is ironclad." "Jennifer made sure of that." Stanley's voice softened. "But Maggie, you should be careful around both Tyler and Richard. Document all interactions, and consider revealing the full terms of the trust sooner rather than later. Sometimes transparency is the best defense." After hanging up, I stood motionless, Jennifer's letter burning in my purse. All these years I'd protected Tyler from the truth, that his mother had seen through him, had recognized the Richard in him. I'd hoped he would change, would somehow find his way back to the sweet boy he'd been before Richard's influence corrupted him. But as I returned to the reception, watching Tyler laugh with Richard in a corner, heads bent together in conspiracy, I finally accepted what Jennifer had known 7 years ago. Some patterns don't change. Some lessons have to be learned the hard way. It was time to reveal the truth about the $33 million. Not just to protect myself, but to give Tyler the one thing he'd never had, a chance to face who he truly was, and decide if that was who he wanted to remain. The brunch the day after the wedding was smaller, more intimate, just family and the wedding party gathered in a private dining room at the Carter estate. I'd barely slept, Stanley's warning playing on repeat in my mind. As I entered the sunlit conservatory where tables had been arranged among lush tropical plants, I steeled myself for the confrontation that seemed inevitable. Tyler and Vanessa hadn't arrived yet. Richard sat with several groomsmen, looking remarkably fresh for someone who'd been escorted out by security the night before. He caught my eye and raised his mimosa in a mocking toast. "Margaret." William Carter approached, offering me coffee. "I hope you found your accommodations comfortable." "Very, thank you." The Carters had insisted on putting me up in their guest house rather than the hotel where other guests stayed. I'd been touched by the gesture, but now wondered if William had his own reasons for keeping me close. "I wonder if we might speak privately before the young couple arrives," he said, confirming my suspicion. I followed him to a stone terrace overlooking immaculate gardens. For a moment, neither of us spoke, sipping our coffee and watching gardeners trim hedges in the distance. "I should tell you," William finally said, "that I knew Jennifer." Another revelation. Was there anyone at this wedding who hadn't been keeping secrets about my daughter? "We weren't close," he clarified, seeing my expression. "We served on a charity board together about 10 years ago, education for underprivileged children." He smiled faintly. "She was formidable, challenged our conventional approaches, made us uncomfortable in the best way." I felt a surge of pride. That sounded exactly like Jennifer. When Vanessa started dating her son, I didn't make the connection immediately. Sullivan is a common name. William set down his cup. Once I realized, I looked into Tyler more carefully, his background, his relationship with his father. "And?" I prompted when he paused. "And I found concerning patterns." His gaze was direct. "Richard Sullivan has a history of using his son to access wealth and connections. 3 failed businesses funded primarily by Tyler's former girlfriends' families. Numerous loans in Tyler's name." My heart sank. "You knew all this and still allowed Vanessa to marry him?" William's expression tightened. "I raised my daughters to make their own choices, even when I disagree. Vanessa sees something in Tyler that I don't." He hesitated. "But I protected her in other ways. Their prenuptial agreement is extensive, and I've placed her inheritance in a trust she can access, but Tyler cannot. just like Jennifer had done. Does Vanessa know about this investigation you conducted? Not the extent of it, but she's smart, observant. She sees Richard's influence. He leaned forward. Which brings me to why I wanted to speak with you. There are rumors in financial circles that Jennifer left behind substantial assets that Tyler expects to inherit when you pass. Richard has been using this expectation to secure investments and loans, and you're concerned about your daughter being drawn into their schemes, I concluded. Precisely. He met my eyes. I don't mean to be indelicate, Margaret, but are these rumors true? Did Jennifer leave her son a significant inheritance? The question hung between us. I could lie, maintain the secret I'd kept for 7 years, but what purpose would that serve now? Jennifer left everything to me, I said quietly, with specific instructions about Tyler. William's eyebrows rose slightly, but he showed no other reaction. I see. And Richard and Tyler don't know this. They suspect, but don't know the details, which is why I swallowed hard. They're preparing to challenge my competency as trustee. Now William looked genuinely shocked. They what? Before I could explain further, the terrace doors opened. Tyler stood there, looking disheveled in a way that suggested hangover rather than the casual, rumpled look young people sometimes affected. Here you are, he said, his tone accusatory. Dad's looking for you, Grandma. William rose smoothly. Actually, Tyler, I was hoping to speak with you about a position at Carter Financial. Perhaps after brunch? The sudden shift caught Tyler off guard. His bloodshot eyes widened with interest. Really? I mean, yes, absolutely. Excellent. I'll have my assistant set it up. William nodded to me. Margaret, thank you for the conversation. As he departed, Tyler's demeanor changed, a calculating look replacing his hangover fog. What were you two talking about? Just getting to know each other. Family now, after all. I kept my voice light. Where's Vanessa? Still getting ready. He waved dismissively. Women, right? An hour to put on lip gloss. The casual sexism made me wince, another echo of Richard's influence. Your father is looking for me? Tyler's expression shifted, became more guarded. Yeah, he wants to discuss something important before we leave for our honeymoon. The honeymoon your credit cards paid for, I said, watching his reaction. The one you can't afford. He blanched. How did you? Then his eyes narrowed. Vanessa, she had no right to tell you about our finances. She's worried about you, Tyler. About the gambling, the debts, the influence your father has over you. His face flushed with anger. This is exactly why we need my mother's money now, not when you decide I'm mature enough or whatever arbitrary standard you've set. I have opportunities, connections. Your father's schemes, you mean, I interrupted. Like all the others that have failed. You don't understand business, he snapped, sounding exactly like Richard had the night before. Dad's building something big this time. We just need capital. And you think your mother's money is the answer. It's my money. The words exploded from him, drawing startled looks from people entering the terrace. Tyler lowered his voice but couldn't disguise his intensity. Mom would have wanted me to have it. Not you. What do you even do with it? Live in that tiny house, drive that old car, wear the same 3 outfits. Each word revealed how little he knew me, or his mother. Jennifer had valued simplicity, had taught me the same after growing up with so little. The modest life I led wasn't from lack of funds, but from choice. Tyler, I said quietly, there's something you need to know about your mother's will. His eyes lit up with anticipation. You're finally going to release the money? No. I took a deep breath. I'm going to tell you the truth. The money was never designated for you. Jennifer left everything to me, with no obligation to pass it to you. Ever. The blood drained from his face. That's not possible. She wouldn't. She did. I held his gaze steadily. And before you and your father proceed with trying to have me declared incompetent, you should know that Jennifer anticipated that too. The trust has provisions that would immediately donate the entire amount to charity if such an attempt were made. He staggered back, as if I'd physically struck him. How did you know about Mrs. Sullivan, Tyler? Richard's voice interrupted, smooth as oil, as he joined us on the terrace. Family discussion without me? I'm hurt. One look at Tyler's shocked face, and Richard's smile faltered. What's going on? Ask your son, I said, gathering my purse. I believe he has news about the inheritance you've been counting on. As I walked away, I heard Richard's urgent whispers and Tyler's devastated response. It's gone, Dad. It was never ours to begin with. For the first time since Jennifer died, I felt the weight of her secret lifting. The truth was out, at least part of it. What I hadn't told them was what Jennifer had written in her final instructions. If Tyler ever truly changes, Mom, the money is his. You'll know when that time comes. If it never does, use it for good in this world. As I re-entered the brunch, I caught Vanessa watching the terrace, concern etched on her face as she observed her new husband's animated conversation with his father. Our eyes met across the room, and I knew the real test was just beginning. 3 weeks passed. Tyler and Vanessa were honeymooning in the Maldives, a trip I now knew they couldn't afford. I returned to my quiet life, volunteering at the hospital where I'd once worked as a nurse, tending my garden, attending my book club. But beneath this calm routine, I was preparing for the storm I knew would follow my revelation to Tyler. Stanley had strengthened the legal protections around Jennifer's trust. William Carter had discreetly offered his support, including connections to his own legal team if necessary. I'd even had a home security system installed after Robert Winters called with a cryptic warning. Richard Sullivan has been asking questions about you in concerning circles. The calm broke on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. My doorbell rang, and through the security camera, I saw Vanessa standing on my porch, alone and without an umbrella, her hair plastered to her face. "Maggie," she said when I opened the door, her voice thick with emotion. "I need to talk to you." I ushered her inside, bringing towels and hot tea. She sat at my kitchen table, looking both younger and older than she had at the wedding, a girl playing at being a woman, suddenly confronted with harsh reality. "Tyler told me everything," she said finally, cradling the mug between her hands. "About Jennifer's money, about what you told him at the brunch." She met my eyes. "Is it true? Did his mother really leave him nothing?" "She left him nothing directly," I confirmed. "She left everything to me." "Why?" The simple question contained so much bewilderment. "He's her son." I considered how to answer, how much to reveal. Jennifer watched Tyler growing up, being shaped by Richard's values. She was afraid of what unlimited money would do to him if he got it too young, without earning it. So it was about teaching him responsibility? Partly, I said carefully, and partly about protection. For Tyler, from himself. Vanessa stared into her tea. "The honeymoon was awful," she said abruptly. "Tyler was on the phone with Richard constantly. They fought, then plotted, then fought again. Tyler barely spoke to me, except to ask if my father might invest in their new venture." My heart ached for her. "I'm sorry, Vanessa." When we got back yesterday, Richard was waiting at our apartment. They talked for hours in Tyler's office. I heard shouting. She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed but dry. "This morning, Tyler told me he's hired lawyers to contest the will. He says you manipulated Jennifer when she was vulnerable, that the money should rightfully be his." I'd expected this, but it still hurt. "And what do you think?" "I think," she said slowly, "that Tyler's not the man I thought I married." She twisted her wedding ring. "The community center called yesterday. Tyler resigned from volunteering, said he couldn't waste time on charity cases anymore." The cruelty of the statement, so reminiscent of Richard, made me wince. "There's something else," Vanessa continued. "Tyler doesn't know I heard, but Richard was talking about other ways to accelerate the inheritance timeline. It scared me, Maggie, the way he said it." She leaned forward. "I don't think you're safe." A chill ran through me. "You think they'd harm me? I don't know what they're capable of anymore," she whispered. "Richard has a hold over Tyler I don't understand. It's like he becomes a different person around his father." We sat in silence, the rain drumming against the windows. Finally, I made a decision. "There's something you should see." I went to my bedroom and returned with Jennifer's letter, the paper soft from years of handling. This is what Jennifer wrote to accompany her will. I've never shown it to anyone. Vanessa took it with trembling hands. As she read, her expression shifted from curiosity to shock, then to profound sadness. "Mom, I've watched Tyler become more like Richard every year. I've tried everything to break Richard's influence. The money would only accelerate Tyler's worst tendencies, but I haven't given up hope entirely. If he ever truly changes, if he finds his way back to the values I tried to teach him, you'll know. And then, Mom, the money is his to use wisely. Until then, protect him from himself, and protect yourself from both of them." She knew, Vanessa whispered. She saw exactly what would happen. "Jennifer was insightful," I said, "and she loved Tyler, even when she couldn't reach him." Vanessa carefully refolded the letter. "What will you do now?" Defend the trust, as Jennifer asked, and hope. Hope for what? That Tyler finds his way back, that he chooses to be more than Richard's son. Vanessa's phone buzzed with a text. Her face tightened as she read it. Tyler wants me home. They're meeting with the lawyers. She stood, smoothing her still damp clothes. I need to think about what to do next. As I walked her to the door, she turned suddenly. The money, all those millions. What do you do with it, Maggie? Do you just leave it sitting in accounts? I smiled faintly. Jennifer was very specific about that too. Half the income goes to foundations supporting victims of domestic abuse, Jennifer's private passion. The other half funds scholarships for low-income students, in Tyler's name, though he doesn't know it. I paused. And yes, some sits untouched, growing, waiting for Tyler to become the man his mother hoped he could be. Something shifted in Vanessa's expression. You never intended to keep it all. It was never about the money, I said gently. It was about what it would do to him. After she left, I called Stanley to warn him about the impending legal challenge. Then I called William Carter. They're moving forward with contesting the will, I told him. And Vanessa is concerned they might try other methods. William's response was immediate. Pack a bag. I'm sending a car. You'll stay at our guest house until this is resolved. I can't impose. Margaret, he interrupted firmly. Jennifer protected her son from his worst instincts. Allow me to protect her mother from the consequences. 3 hours later, I was settled in the Carters' guest house, the same one I'd stayed in after the wedding. As evening fell, I sat on the terrace watching lights come on across the estate grounds. My phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Sullivan? The voice was familiar, but I couldn't place it. It's Robert Winters. I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from a mutual acquaintance. I tensed. What do you want, Mr. Winters? To warn you. His tone was grave. Richard Sullivan has been asking about Jennifer's investment portfolio, specifically about who might have helped her set it up. My name came up. Now I remembered. He'd said he knew Jennifer professionally. What did you tell him? I asked. Nothing important. But he's desperate, Mrs. Sullivan. Men like Richard, when they're cornered financially. He let the implication hang. Be careful. That's all I wanted to say. After he hung up, I stood at the window watching darkness claim the manicured gardens. For 7 years, I'd carried Jennifer's secret alone. Now suddenly, so many people knew or suspected. William, Vanessa, Robert Winters, Tyler, Richard, their lawyers. I touched my phone, tempted to call Tyler, to try one more time to reach the grandson I'd helped raise, the boy who'd once had his mother's smile and compassion. But the screen lit up before I could dial. A text from Vanessa. Tyler's gone to stay with Richard. Says he needs space to process the betrayal. I'm coming to my parents' house tonight. Need to talk to you again. There's more you should know. I stared at the message, wondering what else Jennifer's carefully constructed plan had set in motion, and whether any of us would emerge unscathed from the truth it had protected for so long. Vanessa arrived at the Carter estate just after 9, her eyes red-rimmed but resolute. We sat in the guest house living room, the soft lamplight casting long shadows as rain continued to patter against the windows. I found something, she said without preamble, pulling a small flash drive from her purse. When Tyler left for Richard's, I went through his office. I know I shouldn't have, but after what I heard, she shook her head. I had to know what they were planning. My stomach tightened. And emails between Tyler and Richard going back years, discussions about the inheritance strategy. They've been planning this since before Tyler even met me. Her voice cracked. Our entire relationship, it was all part of their plan. What do you mean? She plugged the drive into her laptop. Richard knew my family had connections to financial circles Jennifer had worked in. They thought I might have information or access to people who did. She opened a file and turned the screen toward me. Read this. From 3 years ago, right when Tyler and I started dating. The email from Richard to Tyler made my blood run cold. The Carter girl is perfect. Her father knows everyone in Boston finance. Get close to her, charm her family. Someone in their circle must know where Jennifer hid the money. Don't blow this like you did with the Peterson girl. Remember, eyes on the prize. $33 is worth a few dinners with boring socialites. Tyler's response was equally disturbing. Already on it. She's actually into all that volunteer crap Mom used to do. Playing along is annoying but working. Her sister's suspicious though. Keeping my distance from that one. I looked up, momentarily speechless. The calculated deception went beyond anything I'd imagined. There's more, Vanessa said, her voice hollow. Hundreds of emails, plans to contest the will once they had enough information, discussions about having you declared incompetent. She swallowed hard. And contingency plans if legal means failed. What kind of contingency plans? I asked, though I feared I knew the answer. Nothing explicitly threatening. They were careful about that. But references to accelerating the timeline and removing obstacles that are chilling. She closed the laptop. I've copied everything. My father's lawyers are reviewing it now. I sat back, trying to process the extent of the betrayal. Not just of me, but of Vanessa. I'm so sorry, I said finally, that you were drawn into this. I feel such a fool, she whispered. I really believed he changed for me. That the volunteering, the interest in social causes, all of it was genuine. We believe what we need to believe about the people we love, I said gently. I did the same with Tyler for years. She looked up sharply. But you saw through him eventually. Jennifer did too. Why couldn't I? Because you have a generous heart, and because Tyler is very much his father's son. Charming when he needs to be, convincing in his deceptions. I reached out to take her hand. Jennifer saw it because she lived with Richard for years. I saw it because I watched it develop. Vanessa wiped away a tear. What do we do now? We protect ourselves, I said firmly, and we follow Jennifer's plan, which has worked exactly as she intended so far. What do you mean? Jennifer knew that one day the truth would force Tyler to confront who he really is, who he's chosen to become. That moment has arrived. I stood, suddenly feeling every one of my 68 years. The question now is whether Tyler will continue down Richard's path or finally find his way back. After everything in these emails, do you still believe he can change? She asked incredulously. I have to, I said simply. He's still Jennifer's son. The next morning brought clear skies and an unexpected visitor. Emma arrived at the guest house as I was having coffee on the terrace. Sorry to intrude, she said, looking uncomfortable. Dad asked me to check if you needed anything. That's very kind, but I'm fine, I assured her. She lingered, shifting her weight from one foot to another. Is it true? What Vanessa told us last night about Tyler and his father? I nodded. I'm afraid so. Emma's expression hardened. I knew it. From the first time I met him, something felt off. The way he watched everyone, calculated every interaction. She sat down across from me. Vanessa wouldn't listen. She said I was being judgmental, that Tyler had hidden depths. He does have depths, I said quietly, just not the kind she hoped for. She's devastated. Dad's talking about annulment, but she won't discuss it yet. Emma studied me with curious intensity. Why aren't you more angry? They were literally plotting against you. It was a fair question. I've had 7 years to prepare for this moment. Jennifer warned me it would come. She sounds like she was remarkable. She was. I smiled at the memory of my fierce, principled daughter. And she'd be grateful for how your family has supported Vanessa through this. Emma's phone chimed with a text. Her expression changed as she read it. Oh no. What is it? Tyler's here, at the main house. He's demanding to see Vanessa. I rose immediately. I should... No, Emma said firmly. Dad and our security team are handling it. You should stay here where it's safe. But I was already gathering my things. Emma, I've been avoiding this confrontation for 7 years. It's time. She looked like she wanted to argue, but instead offered her arm. Then I'm coming with you. We walked briskly across the expansive grounds toward the main house. Even from a distance, I could hear raised voices. As we rounded a hedge, the scene came into view. Tyler standing at the front entrance, gesturing angrily as William Carter blocked the doorway. 2 security guards stood nearby, alert, but not yet intervening. My wife! Tyler was shouting. You can't keep her from me. She doesn't want to see you, William replied, his voice controlled but firm. I suggest you leave before this becomes more embarrassing for everyone. This is her fault, isn't it? Tyler jabbed a finger toward me as Emma and I approached, filling Vanessa's head with lies about me and my dad. William turned, alarm crossing his face when he saw us. Margaret, you shouldn't be here. Emma, take her back to the guest house. But I gently disengaged from Emma's arm and stepped forward. It's all right, William. Tyler and I are overdue for an honest conversation. Tyler's face was flushed with anger, his hair disheveled. He looked like he hadn't slept. Honest? That's rich coming from you. You've been lying to me my entire life about my mother's money. Your mother made her decisions based on what she knew of your character, I said calmly. and your actions since then have only confirmed her judgment." He flinched as if struck. "You turned Vanessa against me, made her spy on me, steal private communications." "No one turned me against you, Tyler. You did that yourself." Vanessa's voice came from the doorway. She stood there, pale but composed, her father moving aside to let her through. "I found those emails because I was worried about you, about what you and Richard were planning." Tyler's expression shifted, the anger momentarily replaced by calculation. "Babe, you don't understand. Dad gets carried away sometimes with how he phrases things. We were just trying to protect what's rightfully mine. By deceiving me? By using me to get to Maggie?" Vanessa's voice trembled. "The volunteer work, the interest in my causes, was any of it real?" A flicker of shame crossed Tyler's face before hardening again. "I did what I had to do. That money belongs to me. It's my birthright." "Money isn't a birthright," I said quietly. "It's a responsibility. One your mother didn't believe you were ready for." "Because you poisoned her against me," he shouted, losing control again. "Just like you've poisoned Vanessa." William stepped forward. "That's enough. You need to leave now, Tyler." "Not without my wife." Vanessa shook her head. "I'm not going anywhere with you. Not until I figure out if there's anything left between us worth saving." Something dangerous flashed in Tyler's eyes. "This isn't over. Any of it." He looked directly at me. "Dad was right about you all along. You've manipulated everyone, turned them against us, but we'll get what's ours." As he stormed off toward his car, Vanessa let out a shaky breath. "I've never seen him like that." "I have," I said softly. "When he was 17, angry at the world for taking his mother. Richard channels that anger, uses it." William placed a protective arm around his daughter. "We should go inside. The lawyers will be here soon to discuss options." As we turned toward the house, I glanced back at Tyler's retreating figure and felt a profound sadness wash over me. In trying to protect him from himself, had Jennifer's plan only pushed him further into Richard's toxic influence? Or was this confrontation exactly what needed to happen, the breaking point before any healing could begin? Either way, the battle lines were now clearly drawn, and I knew with cold certainty that Richard wouldn't stop until he had what he believed was his due, even if it meant destroying what remained of his son's integrity to get it. The next 2 days passed in a blur of legal consultations and security precautions. William's team discovered that Richard had substantial gambling debts to dangerous people, explaining his increasing desperation. Vanessa filed for a temporary restraining order after Tyler showed up at her office, causing a scene. And I sat through hours of depositions, defending Jennifer's will against accusations that I had exercised undue influence over my dying daughter. By Friday evening, I was exhausted. I sat alone in the guest house, watching darkness fall over the Carter estate, when my phone rang. The number was blocked. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. "Mrs. Sullivan." The familiar voice of Robert Winters caught me by surprise. "I need to see you. It's urgent." "Mr. Winters, I don't think—" "It's about Jennifer," he interrupted, "and about Richard. I have information you need to hear in person." I hesitated, recalling William's warnings about trusting anyone connected to this situation. "I'm not at home." "I know. You're at the Carter estate." When I remained silent, he added, "Richard has been monitoring your movements. That's part of what I need to tell you." A chill ran through me. "How do I know I can trust you?" "Jennifer called you Magpie when she was little," he said softly, "because you collected shiny things, sea glass, buttons, coins with unusual dates." My breath caught. No one knew that nickname except Jennifer. "How could you possibly—" "I'll explain everything. Meet me at the public garden near the Carter estate. 1 hour. Come alone." The line went dead before I could respond. Every instinct told me not to go, that it could be a trap. But the mention of that childhood nickname, something so private, so personal, gnawed at me. After 15 minutes of internal debate, I made a decision. I wouldn't go alone. William was reluctant, but understood when I explained. "My head of security will be nearby, out of sight," he assured me. "Emma insisted on driving you. She'll stay in the car at a distance." "Thank you," I said, touched by their concern. "I know this isn't your fight." He smiled grimly. "Richard Sullivan made it our fight when he used my daughter in his schemes." The public garden was nearly empty as dusk deepened into night. A few couples strolled along distant paths, enjoying the warm evening. I sat on a bench near the central fountain as instructed, Emma's car visible in the parking lot beyond. "Mrs. Sullivan," I startled, turning to find Robert Winters settling beside me. He looked more haggard than at the wedding, his expensive suit slightly rumpled. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I know it was asking a lot, given the circumstances." "How did you know about Magpie?" I demanded. He smiled faintly. "Jennifer told me. We were closer than I implied at the wedding." Understanding dawned. "You were involved with my daughter." He nodded. "For nearly 2 years, before her accident. We kept it private because of her position at the firm and because," he hesitated, "because Richard was still a complication in her life, through Tyler." My mind raced, trying to reconcile this revelation with what I knew of Jennifer's final years. "She never mentioned you." "She was protecting me," he said simply. Richard had threatened anyone she dated after him. Professional sabotage, personal harassment. He couldn't stand the idea of her moving on. Robert looked down at his hands. "When Jennifer made that investment in Horizon Tech, I helped her structure it. I knew how valuable it could become." "You knew about the money all along," I realized. "I knew there would be money eventually. I didn't know she'd left it all to you until after she died." His expression grew serious. "Which brings me to why I asked to meet you. Richard has become dangerously obsessed with getting that money. He's hired people to watch you, to look for any vulnerability in the trust." "How do you know this?" "Because he approached me last week, offered me a percentage if I would help him challenge the will based on my relationship with Jennifer." Robert's face hardened. "He thought I would betray her for money." "And you refused." "Of course I refused, but it made me realize how far he's willing to go." He leaned closer. "Richard has evidence of your recent doctor visits. He knows about your heart condition." My blood ran cold. My mild arrhythmia was nothing serious, but in the hands of Richard's lawyers, it could be weaponized to question my competence. "There's more," Robert continued. "He's been manipulating Tyler since Jennifer died, feeding him a distorted version of his mother, making her seem weak, financially foolish, easily influenced by you." His eyes met mine. "Jennifer was the strongest, most clear-headed woman I've ever known." "Yes," I whispered, "she was. I've kept silent for years out of respect for her wishes. But seeing what Richard is doing to Tyler, using him as a pawn..." He shook his head. "Jennifer wouldn't want that. She always hoped Tyler would break free of his father's influence." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I have something that might help." He reached into his jacket and removed a sealed envelope. "Jennifer gave this to me before she died. Said if anything happened to her, I should hold on to it unless Tyler ever ended up exactly like his father." Her words. I took the envelope with trembling hands. "What is it?" "A letter and a USB drive containing recordings of conversations between Jennifer and Richard in the years after their divorce. Things he said about Tyler, about his plans to use the boy to get Jennifer's money eventually." Robert's expression was grim. "It's ugly, Margaret." She recorded him threatening her, mocking Tyler's weakness for caring about others, bragging about how he was molding the boy in his image. I stared at the envelope, understanding the weight of what it contained. Why didn't she use this during the custody battle? She tried. The judge ruled the recordings inadmissible. Richard's lawyer argued they were obtained without consent. He smiled sadly. Jennifer kept them anyway, said someday Tyler might need to hear the truth about his father. "And you think that time is now?" I think the next 2 days passed in a blur of legal consultations and security precautions. William's team discovered that Richard had substantial gambling debts to dangerous people, explaining his increasing desperation. Vanessa filed for a temporary restraining order after Tyler showed up at her office, causing a scene. And I sat through hours of depositions, defending Jennifer's will against accusations that I had exercised undue influence over my dying daughter. By Friday evening, I was exhausted. I sat alone in the guest house, watching darkness fall over the Carter estate, when my phone rang. The number was blocked. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. "Mrs. Sullivan." The familiar voice of Robert Winters caught me by surprise. "I need to see you. It's urgent." "Mr. Winters, I don't think—" "It's about Jennifer," he interrupted. "And about Richard. I have information you need to hear in person." I hesitated, recalling William's warnings about trusting anyone connected to this situation. "I'm not at home." "I know. You're at the Carter estate." When I remained silent, he added, "Richard has been monitoring your movements. That's part of what I need to tell you." A chill ran through me. "How do I know I can trust you?" "Jennifer called you Magpie when she was little," he said softly, "because you collected shiny things, sea glass, buttons, coins with unusual dates." My breath caught. No one knew that nickname except Jennifer. How could you possibly? I'll explain everything. Meet me at the public garden near the Carter estate. 1 hour. Come alone. The line went dead before I could respond. Every instinct told me not to go, that it could be a trap. But the mention of that childhood nickname, something so private, so personal, gnawed at me. After 15 minutes of internal debate, I made a decision. I wouldn't go alone. William was reluctant, but understood when I explained. My head of security will be nearby, out of sight, he assured me. Emma insisted on driving you. She'll stay in the car at a distance. Thank you, I said, touched by their concern. I know this isn't your fight. He smiled grimly. Richard Sullivan made it our fight when he used my daughter in his schemes. The public garden was nearly empty as dusk deepened into night. A few couples strolled along distant paths, enjoying the warm evening. I sat on a bench near the central fountain. As instructed, Emma's car visible in the parking lot beyond. Mrs. Sullivan, I startled, turning to find Robert Winters settling beside me. He looked more haggard than at the wedding, his expensive suit slightly rumpled. Thank you for coming, he said. I know it was asking a lot, given the circumstances. How did you know about Magpie? I demanded. He smiled faintly. Jennifer told me. We were closer than I implied at the wedding. Understanding dawned. You were involved with my daughter. He nodded. For nearly 2 years before her accident. We kept it private because of her position at the firm and because, he hesitated, because Richard was still a complication in her life, through Tyler. My mind raced, trying to reconcile this revelation with what I knew of Jennifer's final years. She never mentioned you. She was protecting me, he said simply. Richard had threatened anyone she dated after him. Professional sabotage, personal harassment. He couldn't stand the idea of her moving on. Robert looked down at his hands. When Jennifer made that investment in Horizon Tech, I helped her structure it. I knew how valuable it could become. You knew about the money all along, I realized. I knew there would be money eventually. I didn't know she'd left it all to you until after she died. His expression grew serious, which brings me to why I asked to meet you. Richard has become dangerously obsessed with getting that money. He's hired people to watch you, to look for any vulnerability in the trust. How do you know this? Because he approached me last week, offered me a percentage if I would help him challenge the will based on my relationship with Jennifer. Robert's face hardened. He thought I would betray her for money, and you refused. Of course I refused, but it made me realize how far he's willing to go. He leaned closer. Richard has evidence of your recent doctor visits. He knows about your heart condition. My blood ran cold. My mild arrhythmia was nothing serious, but in the hands of Richard's lawyers, it could be weaponized to question my competence. There's more, Robert continued. He's been manipulating Tyler since Jennifer died, feeding him a distorted version of his mother, making her seem weak, financially foolish, easily influenced by you. His eyes met mine. Jennifer was the strongest, most clear-headed woman I've ever known. Yes, I whispered, she was. I've kept silent for years out of respect for her wishes. But seeing what Richard is doing to Tyler, using him as a pawn, he shook his head. Jennifer wouldn't want that. She always hoped Tyler would break free of his father's influence. Why are you telling me this now? Because I have something that might help. He reached into his jacket and removed a sealed envelope. Jennifer gave this to me before she died. Said if anything happened to her, I should hold on to it unless Tyler ever ended up exactly like his father. Her words. I took the envelope with trembling hands. What is it? A letter and a USB drive containing recordings of conversations between Jennifer and Richard in the years after their divorce. Things he said about Tyler, about his plans to use the boy to get Jennifer's money eventually. Robert's expression was grim. It's ugly, Margaret. She recorded him threatening her, mocking Tyler's weakness for caring about others, bragging about how he was molding the boy in his image. I stared at the envelope, understanding the weight of what it contained. Why didn't she use this during the custody battle? She tried. The judge ruled the recordings inadmissible. Richard's lawyer argued they were obtained without consent. He smiled sadly. Jennifer kept them anyway, said someday Tyler might need to hear the truth about his father. And you think that time is now. I think Tyler deserves one last chance to see Richard for who he truly is, Robert said quietly, before he loses everything that matters, his marriage, his integrity, his mother's legacy. As I slipped the envelope into my purse, a twig snapped nearby. Robert tensed, scanning the darkness. We should go. I don't trust Richard not to have followed me. Thank you, I said, standing, for honoring Jennifer's memory this way. He nodded, his expression softening. She was the love of my life, Margaret. I couldn't save her, but perhaps we can still save her son. As I walked back toward Emma's waiting car, I felt Jennifer's presence more strongly than I had in years. The pieces she had put in place, the trust, the recordings, even Robert, were finally converging. The battle for Tyler's soul was reaching its climax, and for the first time since the wedding, I felt a flicker of hope that Jennifer's plan might work exactly as she had intended. Chapter 9. The Confrontation. The recording was worse than I'd imagined. Richard's voice, slightly younger but unmistakable, filled the guest house living room where William, Vanessa, Emma, Stanley, and I gathered to listen. The kid's soft, just like you made him. All that volunteer crap, the feelings talks. He's 16, Jen. He should be learning how the world really works, not crying over homeless people and stray dogs. Jennifer's voice, calm but firm. He's developing empathy, Richard, something you wouldn't understand. Empathy doesn't make money. I'm teaching him what matters. Ambition, winning, taking what you want. Is that why you took him to a casino last weekend? To teach him values? A dismissive laugh. He needs to learn risk management. Besides, the kid's got talent for cards. Could be useful someday. He's 16, Richard. It's illegal, not to mention completely inappropriate. Don't be so uptight. Just because you've suddenly become loaded doesn't mean you get to dictate how I raise my son when he's with me. A pause, then Jennifer's voice, suddenly alert. What do you mean, loaded? Come on, Jen. That tech investment, word's getting around. My buddy at Henderson Financial says you hit the jackpot. Richard's tone turned silky. You know, Tyler's going to need money for college soon. That fancy school you want him in isn't cheap. This conversation is over, Richard. And if you ever take our underage son gambling again, I'll have my lawyer file for full custody, always with the threats. The menace in Richard's voice was unmistakable. Remember what I told you when you left? I always get what I want, Jen. Always. If not from you directly, then through the kid. He's more like me than you think. Give it time. Stanley stopped the recording. The room remained silent for several seconds. There's more, I said quietly. Much more. Spanning years. William shook his head in disgust. This is compelling evidence of character, but I'm not sure how it helps legally with the trust dispute. It's not about the legal battle, I replied. It's about Tyler. He needs to hear who his father really is. Vanessa, who had been unnaturally still throughout the recording, finally spoke. He won't believe it. Richard will convince him it's been doctored or taken out of context. Perhaps, Stanley acknowledged, but combined with the emails Vanessa found, it creates a pattern that would be difficult to dismiss. Emma leaned forward. We need to get Tyler alone, away from Richard's influence. Make him listen. He won't come here, Vanessa said. And I can't go to Richard's, the restraining order. I thought for a moment. There's one place he might meet me. Somewhere meaningful to both of us. The next morning I sent Tyler a text. I'm at Jennifer's grave. Come alone if you want to know the whole truth about your mother's will. The cemetery was peaceful, morning light filtering through ancient oaks as I sat on the bench facing Jennifer's headstone. I'd brought fresh flowers, lilies, her favorite, and spent some time talking to her as I often did, explaining what was happening, asking for guidance. An hour passed. I was beginning to think Tyler wouldn't come when I heard footsteps on the gravel path. He appeared, looking thinner than at the wedding, dark circles under his eyes. He stopped several feet away, wary. You came, I said simply. What's this about? His voice was guarded. Dad thinks it's a trap. Of course he does. I patted the bench beside me. But this is between you and me, Tyler, and your mother. He remained standing. You said you'd tell me the truth about the will. I'll do better than that. I'll show you. I took out my tablet. These are recordings your mother made of conversations with Richard over the years. Before you decide to continue this legal battle, you should hear them. Suspicion flashed in his eyes. More manipulations? Did you fake these to turn me against Dad? Tyler, look at me. I held his gaze steadily. I have never lied to you. Not about Jennifer. Not about the money. Not about anything. Can Richard say the same? Something flickered in his expression. Doubt, perhaps. Wordlessly, he sat beside me, leaving space between us. I handed him earbuds and the tablet. Listen, then decide. For the next 40 minutes, Tyler sat motionless, his face increasingly pale as he listened to his father's words, the dismissive comments about Tyler's weakness, the plans to use him to access Jennifer's money, the gradual strategy to shape him into Richard's image. Most damning was a recording from when Tyler was 17, shortly after Jennifer's death. "The timing's actually perfect," Richard told someone. "Kid's devastated, totally malleable. Give me 5 years, and he'll be exactly where I need him. Married into money, positioned for success, and convinced his mother's fortune belongs to him. Maggie won't stand a chance." When the recordings finally ended, Tyler sat frozen, staring at Jennifer's headstone. I remained silent, giving him space to process. "Is there more?" he finally asked, his voice hollow. "Yes, but I think you've heard enough to understand." He removed the earbuds, his movements mechanical. "Why didn't you show me these years ago?" Jennifer left instructions. The recordings were to be kept private unless you were fully under Richard's influence and at risk of losing yourself completely. I touched his hand gently. "She always hoped you'd find your own way, without needing to hear these ugly truths." Tyler's breathing became ragged, his control slipping. I trusted him. Everything I've done, college, career, even marrying Vanessa, all guided by him. "I know," I said softly. "Was anything he ever told me true?" His voice cracked. "About Mom? About you? About anything?" "Your father is a man who creates his own reality, Tyler. He believes whatever serves his interests." Tyler stood abruptly, pacing before the grave. "The things I've done, the person I've become." He looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. "I threatened you, my own grandmother. I was going to have you declared incompetent, because he convinced me you'd stolen what was mine. You were a child when Jennifer died," I said gently. "Richard was the parent you had left. It's natural you trusted him. Stop making excuses for me." The words burst from him. "I'm not a child anymore. I've made my own choices." He gestured toward the tablet. "Even after hearing all that, part of me still wants to defend him. What does that say about me?" I stood, closing the distance between us. "It says you're loyal, that despite everything, you wanted to believe in your father's love." Tyler turned away, his shoulders shaking. I waited, giving him the dignity of privacy in his grief. When he finally turned back, his face was wet but composed. "What happens now?" he asked. "That depends on you. The legal proceedings, the money, your marriage, all of it hinges on what you decide to do next." He looked at his mother's grave, then back at me. "I need time, to think, to figure out who I am without his voice in my head." I nodded, understanding. "Take all the time you need." As we walked back toward the cemetery gates, Tyler stopped suddenly. "Grandma!" The term, unused for so long, caught me by surprise. "Yes? Did Mom ever give up on me? Really give up?" I thought of Jennifer's letter, the provision that the money would be Tyler's if he ever truly changed. "Never," I said truthfully. "She believed in the man you could become, even when she feared the man you were becoming." He nodded once, eyes distant. "I need to see Vanessa, to tell her, I don't know, something true for once." As I watched him walk to his car, I felt Jennifer's presence beside me again, her voice almost audible on the cemetery breeze. "This is just the beginning, Mom. The hardest part comes next." I knew she was right. Tyler had heard the truth, but facing it, truly facing the years of manipulation and his own complicity, would be a longer, more painful journey. Whether he had the courage to take it remained to be seen. 6 months passed. Autumn turned to winter, and Boston disappeared under blankets of snow that transformed the city into something quieter, more contemplative. I moved back to my modest house, though William insisted on maintaining the security system he'd installed. Tyler dropped the legal challenge to Jennifer's will 3 days after our cemetery meeting. Richard, furious at what he perceived as betrayal, launched his own lawsuit, but quickly withdrew it when his lawyers realized the trust's provisions would indeed trigger automatic donation of the entire amount to charity if challenged on grounds of my competency. Vanessa and Tyler separated, but didn't immediately divorce. They began counseling, individually at first, then together. I kept my distance, allowing them space to determine their own path forward without my influence. Richard, facing mounting gambling debts and abandoned by the investors he'd promised a share of Jennifer's fortune, left Boston. Tyler told me he'd resurfaced in Las Vegas, working for a third-rate casino, spinning new schemes for fresh marks. As for Tyler himself, the change was gradual but profound. He quit his position at the investment firm and, after weeks of soul-searching, approached the community center where he'd once volunteered with Vanessa. He started small, sorting donations, serving meals, listening to the stories of those who'd fallen through society's cracks. No one there knew about the inheritance drama or his connection to wealth. He was just Tyler, the quiet volunteer who stayed late to help clean up. On a snowy February morning, exactly 7 years and 6 months after Jennifer's death, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Tyler on my porch, snowflakes catching in his hair. "Can we talk?" he asked. Over tea at my kitchen table, the same table where a desperate Vanessa had sought my help half a year earlier, Tyler outlined what he called his redemption plan. "I want to use my finance background to help people budget, save, avoid predatory loans," he explained. "The community center has nothing like this, but their clients desperately need it." I listened, noting the passion in his voice, Jennifer's passion, finally emerging from beneath the layers of Richard's influence. "I've been working with Vanessa again," he continued, "just as friends, as colleagues. She's developing an outreach program for homeless youth." He hesitated. "We're not back together, not like before, but there's something there worth rebuilding maybe, if she decides I'm worth the risk." "And what do you need from me?" I asked gently. "Nothing." He met my eyes directly. "I'm not here to ask for money or forgiveness or anything else. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying. Really trying this time." I reached across the table and took his hand. "Jennifer would be proud of you." He swallowed hard. "I found some of her old journals. Reading them, it's like meeting her as an adult for the first time. She was extraordinary." "Yes," I said simply. "She was." We sat in comfortable silence, the snow falling softly outside. Finally, Tyler spoke again. "There's something else. I've been meeting with Robert Winters." I tried to hide my surprise. "Oh?" "He's been telling me stories about Mom, who she really was, not Dad's version. And," Tyler looked down at his hands, "he's offered to invest in the financial literacy program, said Mom would have loved the idea." "That sounds like her," I agreed. Tyler hesitated, then asked the question I sensed had been on his mind for months. "The money, Mom's money, what happens to it now?" I studied him, seeing beyond the surface to the genuine curiosity rather than greed. "It continues to fund the scholarships and domestic violence programs Jennifer designated, and it remains in trust, growing. For what purpose? That's for you to discover," I said carefully, "when you're ready." 1 year later, on a bright spring morning, I sat in the audience of a small community center auditorium, watching Tyler address the first graduating class of the Jennifer Sullivan Financial Independence Program. 25 people of various ages received certificates and small grants to continue their education or start modest businesses. Vanessa stood beside him at the podium, their bodies not quite touching, but somehow in sync as they called each graduate's name. The simple gold band had returned to her finger 2 months earlier, after a small, private ceremony at the Carter estate, nothing like the extravagant wedding that had started this journey. After the ceremony, Robert Winters approached me, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. "She would have loved this," he said, nodding toward the graduates mingling with their families. "Yes," I agreed. "She would have." "Have you told him yet?" Robert asked quietly. "Not yet. Soon." That evening I invited Tyler and Vanessa to my home for dinner. After the meal, as we sat in my small living room, I handed Tyler an envelope. "What's this?" he asked. "The final part of Jennifer's plan," I explained. "The part she hoped would someday be possible." Inside was a letter I'd written, outlining the full terms of Jennifer's trust, including the provision that when Tyler demonstrated through his actions that he had rejected Richard's values and embraced Jennifer's vision of service and compassion, the trust would transfer to his control. "I don't understand," he said, looking up from the letter. "You're giving me the money?" "No," I corrected gently. "Jennifer is. She always intended it to be yours eventually. Not as a birthright, but as a responsibility you earned. The scholarships, the domestic violence programs, they continue. But now you'll guide the rest of the trust's resources." Vanessa squeezed his hand as tears filled his eyes. "I don't deserve this," he whispered. "It's not about deserving," I said. "It's about becoming. Jennifer saw who you could be, beyond Richard's influence. It just took longer than she hoped." Later, after they'd left, I sat alone in my garden as twilight settled over Boston. I felt Jennifer's presence again, as I often did in quiet moments. "You were right," I whispered to her, "about everything. The money would have destroyed him back then, and keeping it from him forced him to find himself." As a cool spring breeze rustled the emerging leaves, I thought about the journey from that wedding day to now, how I'd sat silently while Tyler and Richard plotted, while the truth remained buried, while $33 million hung in the balance. That silence had been Jennifer's final gift to her son, the space to fail, to fall, and finally to rise again on his own terms. Not as Richard's pawn or Jennifer's heir, but as himself, imperfect, still learning, but finally free. I smiled up at the emerging stars. "Well played, my girl," I whispered. "Well played indeed." 5 years later, the Jennifer Sullivan Foundation has funded financial literacy programs in community centers across 30 states. Tyler and Vanessa work side by side, their partnership stronger for having been broken and deliberately rebuilt. They have a 3-year-old daughter named Jennifer, who already shows her grandmother's determination and her great-grandmother's kindness. Richard occasionally surfaces, always with a new scheme, always looking for an angle. Tyler sends him enough to live on, but refuses any further contact. Robert Winters serves on the foundation's board, his financial expertise and memories of Jennifer guiding its growth. Sometimes I catch him looking at Tyler with a bittersweet expression, seeing Jennifer in her son's emerging strength. As for me, I still live in my modest house, drive my sensible car, and volunteer at the hospital. The neighbors have no idea that the quiet retired nurse on their street helped manage a multi-million-dollar trust for nearly a decade, or that my grandson now oversees one of the fastest-growing charitable foundations in the country. I still visit Jennifer's grave weekly, bringing fresh flowers and updates on her legacy. "You should see him now," I tell her. "He's finally become the man you hoped he could be." And sometimes, when the wind rustles the trees just right, I could swear I hear her answer, "I knew he would, Mom. That's why I left the money to you. You were the only one who would wait long enough to find out." Before I continue with my next story, I want to remind you to subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment below telling me what you thought of Tyler and Maggie's journey. If you want to hear more stories like this one, without ads, delivered straight to your phone even without internet, just check out the pinned comment. Your support helps us create more content just like this.